the rewards of the Creator. Thank you once again for your time. This is David and welcome. Let's get started. The ego does not recognize the real source of threat. And if you associate yourself with the ego, you do not understand the situation as it is. Only your allegiance to it gives the ego any power over you. I have spoken of the ego as if it were a separate thing, acting on its own. This was necessary to persuade you that you cannot dismiss it lightly and must realize how much of your thinking is ego directed. Yeah? We cannot safely let it go at that, however, or you will regard yourself as necessarily conflicted as long as you are here, or as long as you believe that you are here. That is quite funny, isn't it? The course. So basically, it's told us that the ego is not a separate thing, but we had to talk about it as a separate thing so we can realize how much influence we are, or rather how much we are aligned, or how much we have pledged allegiance to this ego or this idea of separation. Okay, so I hope you got that point, that the ego is not a separate thing standing on its own, but we had to talk about it that way just so we can understand how much it influences us. But in actual sense, the ego is nothing more than a part of your belief about yourself. So it's not a separate thing. It is simply the part of the mind that believes that it is separate from all that is. In other words, it's a part of our beliefs about ourselves. Yeah. But I also like this sentence where it says that as long as you believe that you are here, So once again, the course is reminding us, always remember the fact that you are here is because you believe that you are here. As in on earth, as in alive, as a person, as a man or a woman. Yeah. The sentence says, we cannot safely let it go at that, however, or you will regard yourself as necessarily conflicted as long as you are here. And then it says, or as long as you believe that you are here. So I like that little reminder. Anyways, the ego is nothing more than a part of your belief about yourself. Your other life has continued without interruption and has been and always will be totally unaffected by your attempts to dissociate it. In learning to escape from illusions, your debt to your brother is something you must never forget. It is the same debt that you owe to me. Whenever you act egotistically towards another, you are throwing away the graciousness of your indebtedness and the holy perception it would produce. The term holy can be used here because as you learn how much you are indebted to the whole sonship, which includes me, you come as close to knowledge as perception can. That's, in other words, as long as you're in the perception, and rather, instead of vision, as long as you're using perception rather than true vision, this is as close as you can get to true knowledge. Yeah. The gap is then so small that knowledge can easily flow across it and obliterate it forever. Okay, this is quite as I see it, a little bit complicated paragraph, okay? Because it's talking about a debt to the sonship, and we are all part of the sonship, including the voice of the cause, which is Christ. And it's saying that whenever you act egotistically towards one another, you're throwing away the grace or the graciousness and the holy perception that would produce, the graciousness of our indebtedness. So let's just move on and see what this debt is all about. But before we even move on, we can say real quick here, all it's saying is this. To escape from illusions, you can only do so if you always keep in mind your debt to the sonship or your debt to your brother. In other words, you cannot go around acting egotistically and escape from illusions. Okay? You must have holy perception by remembering your debt to the sonship, which includes you and I and Christ. We're all children of the same creator. But let's move on, because I think things will get clearer as we proceed on in this topic. You have very little trust in me as yet, but it will increase as you turn more and more often to me instead of to your ego for guidance. The results will convince you increasingly that this choice is the only sane one you can make. No one who learns from experience that one choice brings peace and joy while another brings chaos and disaster needs additional convincing. Learning through reward is more effective than learning through pain, because pain is an ego illusion and can never induce more than a temporary effect. Okay, so once again, you're being reminded you don't have to trust this word any more than you already do. But as long as you keep going forward and you start to see the results, then you'll no longer need anyone to tell you or to convince you of anything. The rewards and the results themselves will convince you that you're on the right path. So it's just telling you, just keep going, don't worry about it. You don't even need to trust this material at this point. Its fruits will be the proof that you need if you just keep on moving. And it's also saying that you will never be forced to learn through pain and punishment and suffering and sacrifice. Okay? The cause will not. So if that's happening, you'll know that automatically you're in your ego zone. Yeah? Because quite a lot of times we think, we are being punished or taught a lesson through pain and struggle and sacrifice. What the course is saying is that that's not the way the higher self or the Holy Spirit or Christ consciousness teaches through reward, never through pain, suffering and struggle. Whenever you're in that, you're in an ego illusion. So I think that's an important distinction to carry across, because quite often many of us assume that let's call it spirit or the higher world will teach us through pain, but that's just ego. You can just throw away that idea right now. It's just ego. The rewards of the Creator, however, are immediately recognized as eternal. Since this recognition is made by you and not the ego, the recognition itself establishes that you and your ego cannot be identical. So the rewards themselves will automatically establish in your mind that you and your ego are not the same thing. You may believe that you have already accepted this difference, but you are by no means convinced as yet. The fact that you believe you must escape from the ego shows this, but you cannot escape from the ego by humbling it or controlling it or punishing it. Okay? To me, this is saying that fine, maybe in our brain we've accepted that, hey, there is a difference between us and the ego, but we have not really let go of the belief in the ego, because the very fact that we are trying to escape, in quotes, from the ego shows that we already, we haven't totally let go of this belief. Yeah. The ego and the spirit do not know each other. I think we've said this many times. The separated mind cannot maintain the separation except by dissociating. Having done this, it denies all truly natural impulses, not because the ego is a separate thing, but because you want to believe that you are. So, slow down here, okay? Let's deconstruct this paragraph because it's very interesting. It's extremely interesting. First of all, the sentence we've seen over and over and over again. The ego and the spirit do not know each other. Then, the separated mind cannot maintain the separation except by dissociating. You see what I mean? The word dissociating here means, like, I got nothing to do with this, that kind of thing. Like, let's say you're in a group of friends and, you all agree that you're going to go somewhere and do something, and then, that doesn't feel right to you. So you say, I got nothing to do with this. That's what I mean here, or I think that's what I think the course means here by dissociating. I got nothing to do with this, So the only way the mind can maintain this illusion of separation is, I got nothing to do with this, with the rest of the creation by dissociating itself, or that part, because you can't disconnect it totally. There's no such thing, there's only one. But you could say like a part of it can pretend by dissociating that it's got nothing to do with the rest of itself. Basically, yeah. So having done this, it denies all truly natural impulses. But it's not that the ego has the power to deny nature. It's not a separate thing, so it cannot deny nature. It relies on you. So the only reason why this happens is because you still want to believe that you are separate. Now remember, we said something. Let's say we take the part of you that is spirit, that will forever remain in the truth of unity, so you don't have to worry about it. Now if you remember again, if we take the part that is the body has no creative or making powers. It's just an effect, so it leaves only the mind. And remember, we also said that the creator created your mind, or you, by extension of its mind. In other words, you're an extension of the creator's mind. Now we are saying here that this extension wants to believe that it is separate from its maker. It has nothing to do with spirit, nothing to do with body. It's a mind part. You see? Very important distinction. The ego is a device for maintaining this belief, but it is still only your decision to use the device that enables it to endure, to stay. Do you see? I hope we summarize this. It is your decision to use the ego, your decision to believe in the separation that maintains it. The ego by itself, we said in the beginning, we've been talking about it as if it's a separate thing that has been running your life to hell, so to speak. But now we're clarifying and saying that the ego is not separate, and it cannot be except for your decision to maintain it. The minute you let go of your decision, no more ego. It's that simple. You are 100% in control of this one, even though you feel like you're not. And you might not be able to get yourself out of it. You need the help, and that's why you're getting this like causing miracles and everything. But that doesn't mean it's not within your control, even if you need somebody to help you to turn that control into the right use. Now, how can you teach someone the value of something he has deliberately thrown away? He must have thrown it away because he did not value it. You can only show him how miserable he is without it, and slowly bring it nearer so he can learn how his misery lessens as he approaches it. This teaches him to associate his misery with its absence, and the opposite of misery with its presence. It gradually becomes desirable as he changes his mind about its worth. I am teaching you to dissociate misery with the ego and joy with the spirit. Sorry, I am teaching you to associate, not dissociate. Associate misery with the ego and joy with the spirit. You have taught yourself the opposite. You are still free to choose, but can you really want the rewards of the ego in the presence of the rewards of your creator? So basically that's what the course is doing. It cannot force us to value what we threw away for whatever reason. I'm sure there was a reason. And just here, just something I want to throw in here. If you read certain books, even certain I think like Far Eastern religions, or even like books such as Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, there's this idea that in the beginning there was only one and nothing else, and that one could not know itself because there was nothing opposite it, and that one decided to know itself. It knew, rather to experience itself. It knew itself as the most amazing, powerful absoluteness with nothing else, absoluteness. So it knew itself as that, but it wanted to experience this absoluteness. And in that wanting to experience, it came up with the idea of separation, or seemingly separate parts. So that now, from the absolute, there was duality created and relativity. So imagine this absolute. When there's absolute, when there's only one, there's no opposite. So that one cannot know itself. In other words, if there was only black, and there was no other color, black would never know itself as black. Black needs white and every other color so that black can know itself as black. So there's this idea that the reason why we got into separation is because the absolute one wanted to experience the totality of what it could be. And from that, it created the universes with seemingly separate parts. Seemingly separate. And this is where the illusion of separation started. I just thought I'd throw that in because, out of curiosity, you might want to have an alternative understanding why we're in this place in the first place. My trust in you is greater than yours in me at the moment, but it will not always be that way. Your mission is very simple. In other words, your trust in Christ or Christ consciousness will equal its trust in you at some point. So your mission is very simple. You are asked to live so as to demonstrate that you are not an ego. And I do not choose God's channels wrongly. The Holy One shares my trust and accepts my atonement decisions because my will is never out of accord with His. I have said before that I am in charge of the atonement. This is only because I completed my part in it as a man and can now complete it through others. My chosen channels cannot fail because I will lend them my strength as long as there is wanting. The part here that I would have liked to have underlined is your mission is very simple. You are asked to live so as to demonstrate that you are not an ego. You are asked to live so as to demonstrate that you are not an ego. It's a simple mission, but the more you are in the ego, the heavier and more difficult this mission looks like. But remember, difficulty is only in your mind. And it is an idea that is being supported and given to you by the ego. By your ego part of your mind, rather. That is too difficult. You can't make it. Forget it. How can you possibly do that when there's bills to pay and there's people calling you names and separation is so real? Yet the thing is telling you, you are asked to live so as to demonstrate that you are not an ego. In other words, there is no separation. It's a very interesting mission, don't you think? I will go with you to the Holy One, and through my perception, He can bridge the little gap. Your gratitude to your brother is the only gift I want. I will bring it to your Creator for you, knowing that you know your brother, knowing that to know your brother is to know God. In other words, to know any part of the whole is to know the Creator. If you are grateful to your brother, you are grateful to your Creator for what He created. Through your gratitude, you come to know your brother. Through your gratitude, you come to know your brother, and one moment, only one moment of real recognition makes everyone your brother because each of them is of your Father. Love does not conquer all things, but it does set all things right. Because you are the kingdom of God, I can lead you back to your own creations. You do not recognize them now, but what has been dissociated is still there. As you come closer to a brother, you approach me. And as you withdraw from him, I become distant to you. Salvation is a collaborative venture. It cannot be undertaken successfully by those who disengage themselves from the sonship because they are disengaging themselves from me. Your Creator will come to you only as you'll give Him to your brothers. Learn first of them and you will be ready to hear your Creator. That is because the function of love is one. It's a beautiful paragraph, isn't it? Beautiful. And I especially love this last two sentences. Learn first of them. In other words, just you and your brother, or, other people. Let's put it that way. Okay? The minute you recognize divinity in other people, you will be ready to hear your Creator. Because they're the same, you could say. But the minute you project ego onto others, then you cannot hear the Creator. That is because the function of love is one. I like that sentence. It's so simple yet so deep. So thank you very much. That was, I think, quite amazing. One of those, in my mind, a little bit of an abstract topic, but very juicy. So I'll see you in the last topic in this chapter shortly. Thank you.